Well, hey there, friends. Pull up a rocking chair and sit a spell. Hi, this is Bobby Autry, coming to you once again from my back porch, rocking chair, overlooking beautiful Betts Creek, right here in Savannah, Georgia. You know, life has a funny way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. Sometimes those lessons come through hard times, sometimes through embarrassing moments, and sometimes through things we thought made us look mighty important at the time. Tonight, we're going to travel back to those younger days again. Back when young boys thought they were tougher than they really were. Back when asking a girl to go steady could make your knees shake harder than standing before a judge. And back when owning a shiny 1963 Chevy Super Sport made you feel like the king of the highway and truly king of the drive-thrus. At least until a Harley-Davidson motorcycle came along and reminded you otherwise. You'll see what I mean a little bit later. So, for now, settle in for a little tonight. Because from bullies to young love to teenage showing off, well, this old rocking chair remembers them all. Now, back when I was younger, I think I've mentioned to you about my aunts who were twins, just a little bit older than me, so we were still in the same school and same grades and things like that. But they had moved down to Jacksonville. Now, Laquita and Awita, they were something to look at. They were really good aunts. And let me tell you something right now. Back in those days, if twin girls talked to you, smiled at you, or even knew your name, you automatically thought you were something special. So guess what? I thought I was something special, even though they were my aunts. Well, there was just one little problem back then. There happened to be another boy around there who believed most of the girls in the neighborhood belonged to his attention and his attention only. And when the twins would go down to the city park and be on the swings and the sliding board or doing the things that girls would do down at the park, well, this one boy came up and he didn't want anybody else talking with him, and he wanted to kind of show them who was boss. Now, I don't know if every town had one growing up, but Jacksonville had one, and I got to meet him. Every little community seemed to have one boy who was bigger, louder, meaner, and always trying to prove himself by making somebody else miserable. Sometimes that miserable person was me. And this fellow, well, he was the local bully. And the thing about bullies is they usually pick on people they think won't stand up for themselves. So there he was at the park, all the kids playing, and the twins would not pay him any attention. And he'd go over and say, "Who do y'all think you are? Don't you think you're good enough for me?" And they would kind of ignore him and tell him to go away. Well, he didn't want to take no for an answer, and he went over and he kept pestering them. And finally, he kind of shoved Laquita. Awita shoved back. Laquita said, "Don't touch me." And one thing led to another, and next thing you know, he had pushed one of the twins down, jumped up, and off they ran back to the house. They were going to find my brother Buddy. Most of you from other episodes know about my brother Buddy. He wasn't a bully, but he was the head honcho around in the local neighborhood. A little bit older, a little bit stronger, a little bit more courage than what I had. And so the twins went to find him. They would get Buddy to handle this bully for them. And so they went running home. In the meantime, I was out playing in the yard, minding my own business. In fact, if I recall the story correctly, I was acting like Superman. You know, back then, us kids, we would take and put a towel and we'd tie it around our shirt or put a little pin in it so the towel would be off the back like a cape, and that made us Superman. And so I was off playing to myself. The twins come running home. Buddy, where's Buddy? Buddy, you got to help us. You got to help us. Well, I turned and told them, I said, Buddy's not home. I'm here. What can I do? Well, they did laugh at me. They said, nothing. I said, well, yeah, what did you want Buddy for? He says, well, this guy down in the park, he pushed us down, and he was making fun of us. And we was going to get Buddy to go beat him up. Well, what's wrong with Bobby beating him up? Oh, I think you can see where this is headed. Well, they said, okay, come on. And we all went back down to the park, and some of the other kids saw us coming. And they told the guy, and he started over to the side of the park and was waiting on us, and he jumped, kind of pounced on his chest like King Kong. What are you going to do? And the kids started getting into a semicircle. The twins came up, and they said, that's him. Get him, Bobby. Get him. So I went over and put my fist up. Well, kids back then, when it came to fighting and things like that, it's not like we have today with all the kids with guns and all the other things they use. It was just our little fist, little shoving, and that was about it. Well, we start going round and round, and I'm holding my fist up, and he's holding his fist up, and the kids are encouraging us, hit him, you hit him. And the twins were saying, hit him. And I was sitting there, you hit me first. No, you hit me first. You hit me first. You hit me first. And we went round and round. And then all of a sudden, the twins did something I was not expecting. They said, don't hit him in the nose. His nose bleeds easy. Don't hit him in the nose. So guess where he hit me? Right in the nose. Oh no, my nose is bleeding. And I'm trying to hold the tears back, and it would make me so mad that my nose would bleed easy. There came the blood. The kids were laughing. The guy was looking at me like, what are you going to do? Well, what he didn't realize is normally when my nose would bleed, and it kind of would embarrass me and upset me, and actually, looking back, I guess you could call it make me mad. I looked at him and I said, you're not going to bloody my nose. And I pounced on him. I hit him a couple of times. He backed up and he said, whoa, what are you? Oh no, leave me alone. And we found out real quick that now, even though I wasn't looking for trouble, I wasn't trying to act tough. And honestly, I probably had more fear in me than courage, but sometimes life corners you into those moments where you have to decide. Are you going to spend the rest of your life backing up, or are you finally going to stand your ground? So I did, and friends, let me tell you, he took off running. The kids started cheering. I felt like, what? Superman. Of course, with a bloody nose. And the twins took me, one on one arm, one on the other, and we took off back to the house where they could give me some of that special attention and get rid of that bloody nose. Oh, man, sometimes fear bullies us. Sometimes doubt bullies us. Sometimes people try to intimidate us into believing we're smaller than we really are. But God didn't create us to spend our lives living afraid. And that day, I became a true living Superman with a bloody nose. You know, after surviving bullies and all the confusion of growing up, let's change the story for a minute. You'd think talking to a pretty girl would get easier, especially having my twin aunts and all. But I remember again, back in grammar school, and I came across a young lady. Her name was Margaret. She was a pretty girl. She would run with the other pretty girls, and because I was skinny and maybe not all that good looking, Unless you look in the mirror. And, oh, well. I kind of had a thing for Margaret. And there came a day when I had worked myself up nearly sick trying to ask Margaret one simple question. Any of you ever done that? Can you remember back when you first met the person, boy or girl, that you all of a sudden said, man, I would like to go. Back then we called it steady. Will you go steady with me? Now, younger folk today probably don't even use that phrase anymore. Will you go steady with me? Nowadays, everything's text messages, emojis, and social media. But back then, asking a girl to go steady was serious business. That wasn't just conversation. That was emotional, internal warfare. What am I going to do? How can I ask her? What if she says no? All those things go through your mind. I must have rehearsed those words 1,000 times in my head. I'd walk around saying that silently, Margaret, would you maybe, if you want to, no, I couldn't do that. I'd have to start over. And the closer I got to actually asking her, the more nervous I became. Now, back then, we didn't have, caller ID. We didn't have the smartphones. We couldn't tell who was calling. We picked up the phone, a rotary phone, and dial those numbers. And you get down to next to the last number, and you think, no, I better not. And you hang up. Then all of a sudden, you start back. I'm going to call her. I'm going to ask her. There it goes again. You start dialing that number. You dial the last number. The phone rings, and she picks it up. Your palms are sweating. Your heart is racing. Your mouth is going dry. I believe I could have fought a grizzly bear easier than asking that question. But, hi, Margaret. This is Bobby. She hung up the phone. Maybe she didn't hear me. Oh, why did I do that? I knew I shouldn't do that. I put the phone back down, went back to my room, paced back and forth. I hit the wall. I gotta talk to her. Well, finally built up the courage, went back and got the phone, but had a long cord on it. We'd go down in the hallway and sit in the floor and pick up the phone. Tried again. I called her. The phone rang. She answered. Hello? Margaret, this is Bobby. Do you have the history homework pages? I seem to have lost mine. Oh, yeah. Page 69 through 42. Yeah, I was so confused. 69 through 123. And we're going to have a pop quiz. I've heard. See you tomorrow. Bye. And that was it. I didn't even have a chance to say anything else. The next day, I get up, I go to school. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? And I come down the hallway, and there she is with the other girls. And she looks at me, and she says, did you get your homework done? Oh yes. But, Margaret, there was something I wanted to ask you. She said, what would you want to ask me? And the other girls laughed. And she turned and they walked into the classroom. And I stood there thinking, what am I doing? Doesn't she know who I am? And the question was, yes, she did know I was. And she didn't want to have anything to do with me. Well, there'll be another girl somewhere along the way. And I think her name may be Patsy. We're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks as Patsy and I get close to our 69th wedding anniversary. 69th. See, there it goes again. 59th wedding anniversary. It's coming up June the 9th. And I'm going to be doing a podcast talking about how Patsy and I actually met. and how things led up one to the other. The things that matter most are usually the things that require the greatest courage. So you'll find out. But before we close out for today, one more little story. And eventually, after all that nervousness and emotional drama, well, like most teenage boys, I reached the stage where I thought I had life all figured out. Me and my gang of friends, and Buddy and his gang of thugs, as I always called them, they did their things. But the thing that really helped me the most is becoming a radio disc jockey, and right in high school and being able to be on the air with rock and roll music and a nice car. Many of you will remember from some earlier episodes, the 1963 Chevy Impala Super Sport with all the special fixings. You get behind the steering wheel of a shiny automobile and your friends all jump in the back seat. And of course, we had a bench seat and a couple of them in the front. Well, now let me tell you something. Back in those days, the 63 Chevy Super Sport wasn't just transportation. Oh, no. That was a rolling declaration of importance. Look at me. Had the loud exhaust on it, had the 4-speed transmission, pop that clutch and squeal those tires, had the mag wheels on it and all the loud stereo. When I got behind that wheel, I thought the world ought to stop and admire me. And somewhere along the way, dangerous things started happening to young men like myself. We began trying to impress everybody around us. Now, for those of us from the 60s particularly, we remember Shoney's. That was the big place for everybody. Shoney's Big Boy. And being able to pull up and the girls come out and take your order and put a tray on their side. Well, I didn't want nobody touching my car, so other people pull in and they get something to eat. And us cool guys, we just went in circles. We would circle around the Shoney's. Oh, boy, make that engine sound. And everybody turn and look. And we'd turn up the tunes and listen to the rock and roll music. And people would look at us, and then there was one area over next to Shoney's. Guys would pull over with their cars, and they'd get out and stand, kind of put their back up against it and say, "This one's mine." People come over and look at it, and they want to see the engine, and then you crank it up, and all those things. Well, we did this week after week, and I was pretty proud of myself. But there came a time and said, "Well, there's got to be more to it than this." Well, Marietta's not that far from Atlanta, Georgia, right down the 4-lane highway. And we're going to go down, and there's a special place right as you get into Atlanta, right off North Avenue. It's called, anybody know? The Varsity. That was the place. Everybody that was anybody with cool cars, everybody that was anybody that wanted to be seen would go to the Varsity. And so me and my guys, we drove from Marietta to Atlanta. We get down to the Varsity and we start going up and down, and it had two levels, and you could go and ride up one level and ride back down the other, pull out and run around to the other side of the Varsity and pull back in and do it again. And there was all types of really cool cars. Mine kind of blended in, and I would kind of riv it up and do the things we did, but it wasn't the same as it was at Shoney's. So we did that for a while, and we were saying, "Oh man, there's got to be something. Let's go back to the Shoney's. Let's head back to Marietta." When I got behind that wheel, I thought the world wanted to stop and admire me, and somewhere along the way, a dangerous thing again. Oh man, I can pop that clutch and smoke them tires. Well, those are the things you thought you could do and impress people, but I was about to be given a new lesson in what fast and loud was all about. As we pulled out of the Varsity, just as we got back up to the 4-lane highway, there's a red light, and it was red. I stopped, and I'd rev up the engine so people would hear me, and up next to me in the right lane pulled a Harley Davidson motorcycle. big, black, shiny, a lot of chrome. And the guy, when he put his foot down and was waiting for the light to change, he glanced over at us. And the guys in the back seat of the car, when they pointed at him like, you think that's something? Show him, Bobby. And I'd rev up the engine. He's sitting at the red light, and the guy in the Harley, but of course he had a black helmet on too. And he looked at me, and he kind of just, a little twinkle in his eye and a little bit of a smile coming off the corner of his lip. And he turned the head back, and the light changed, and he hit the Harley Davidson. Pow! Whoa! I popped a wheel. The wheels were smoking. Oh, man. But when I looked, all I could see was his taillights about 6 blocks down the road. I hadn't hardly left the red light. I really wasn't trying to do anything. I was just playing around. And I turned and went down the 4-lane highway. Slowly, methodically, and knowing. Sometimes you better leave things alone, especially if they happen to be a Harley Davidson motorcycle. Let's just say that motorcycle didn't barely or merely beat me. He educated me. Don't play around with motorcycles. You know, looking back now from this old rocking chair, ooh, those stories, they seem funny today. But hidden inside every one of them was a lesson. The bully taught me that fear only grows when you keep backing away from it. Margaret taught me that courage is often required for the things that matter the most, but then you find out they matter the least. And then that Harley Davidson, it taught me something every young person eventually learns. Pride usually rides a little faster than wisdom. But through all those years, through every embarrassing moment, every nervous conversation, every youthful mistake, God was still teaching. God was still guiding. God was still protecting. But most of all, God was shaping who we would become. And maybe that's the real story. Not how tough we were. Not how cool we looked. Not whether we won or lost. But how God stayed with us through every chapter of growing up. Friends, I hope you enjoyed the stories for today, and they brought back a few memories of your own. And if they did, I'd love to hear about them. Leave a comment, send me an email, and if you're enjoying these evenings from the rocking chair, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you can be reminded the next time we publish the podcast. Ooh. So for now, from my back porch overlooking Betts Creek, and this old rocking chair, this is Bobby Autry saying thank you for dropping by. Don't forget, there's always room for one more.